Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining today in the webinar. So we have joined us today to talk about the upcoming avenues in the function of learning and development. And we have Kanchi as a panelist with us. She is one of the most special interns because she was offered PTO from HETSA. And then she joined us as an HR associate. So welcome, Tanchi.
Thank you so much, Sugandha. That I think sums up my short but very meaningful corporate journey so far. So,
Okay, great. So you are one of the recent hires at Heads Up, and that too you joined in pandemic when things were not pretty normal, as I would say. Did you face any challenges while getting accustomed to the new working environment, the corporate working environment, considering you also are a fresher? So, can you share your experience
yeah.
on that?
Okay, so initially, I'll be very honest, it was a little difficult because especially when you join MBA, you sort of fantasize a lot about your corporate first. Like first day of office, kaisa hoga? How will the people be? First lunch break, kaisa hoga? You think a lot about that. You think a lot about how awkward it will be initially and how you'll make really nice friends later. You know, so all of that did not happen for me basically because I joined initially. It was, I think, for the first 2 months it was work from home because I joined when there was a peak happening in the pandemic. So when I joined, it was a little tough because you just have to readjust to a lot of new things, from something as simple as the way emails are written in the company. So you have to really acquaint yourself to that. And for I mean, heads up, like specifically for me, especially in heads up, this was made easier because all of these gaps, they were filled through very free and open communication. Like, I was getting feedback 360-degree. It wasn't just coming from my manager, who was you, incidentally, but it was also coming from people who joined with me. So we were just helping each other adjust to this. um, that, I guess, made it a lot easier for me. And you know with heads up, there's a huge aspect of pre-onboarding. We don't just believe in onboarding. So pre-onboarding, for instance, for me, it was one-on-one sessions with the founder. He told us his journey, why he started the company, how it happened, where he sees it going. All of that really makes you feel a connection with the company, with the people. In addition to that, there were certain assignments also that I was made to do. So all of that did try, it did work in filling those gaps in L&D that happened. But at the same time, it didn't happen overnight, right? So initially, I did face some challenges, especially in making connections, because I think that was the major thing that the pandemic took away from us initially. Um, until we had started a hybrid setup, it was still a little tough for me to just randomly come up to you with some question. But I think now it is, I come up to you with even tiny, tiny questions. So that has changed, but it's just like we just have to adjust to what's happening around us, I guess. And L&D does play a huge part in it, which I think has been very underrated, right? Like currently, especially when it comes to onboarding, because a lot of people just believe that a good onboarding, which is basically just a good first presentation that the HR gives to the new joiners, is enough to make them feel like they belong to the company. Especially now with work from home, that you have people joining in from like different states and different countries, not just like people in Delhi. You have people joining a company from different locations as well. So there, L&D really does help, because all of these, like pre-onboarding, small small things also, they can really make the journey of a new joiner very, very different.
Right.
Yeah.
What I heard from you that L&D is an essential part in the entire employee life cycle, right from your beginning, your day one or your step one. If you take a step back, you have been a student and you've attended different phases of classes. One is into offline, then online. Your joining was into an online setup. How do you think pandemic has affected the entire learning journey? And what was your experience into that? Did that affect the placement as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I was fortunate enough. I think my batch, like the 2019 graduation batch, was the last one to have their farewells. So I just graduated in the nick of time, basically. And then I even had my first year of MBA like offline, so I was actually able to go through that rigorous those rigorous classes that happen where you were just like grilling and drilling and drilling, 24/7. That first year was really tough. But then when the second year happened, that was completely offline. Like we were taking our classes on Teams, we were just taking from off the laptop for hours on end, and then that became really tough because it really does take a toll on you, because you can't possibly concentrate. Like the level of concentration you have at 9 a.m., that cannot be carried on till 4 p.m. That is just not possible. Especially if you're staring at a laptop, it takes a toll on your health. And after that, you're just so exhausted that you can't do anything else. So I feel that did impact my studies, that impacted my learning. From second year, like when I draw contrast between what I learned in my first year and my second year, the first year was far greater, because you're not just learning from your professors, you're learning from everyone around you. In my second year, I did not really talk to a lot of people. You're just sitting alone in a room and taking classes. So that does take away from the experience. As far as coming as when coming to placements, it definitely did impact, because that was the first time we were giving we were giving online GDs. Like that was really tough, because you don't know how you're supposed to cut someone. There was no training involved. So we didn't know how to go about that. Even with like the personal interviews that happened for like jobs, etc., that was also very tough, because it was a very different setup. I mean, I understand that, with PIs it is a little easier because it's just a 1 hour conversation. But still, even if there was a little bit of an internet glitch, then I used to just panic. I used to freeze. So all of those things, like you don't face those. I mean, I hadn't faced those like before. So after that, when rejection comes, that is just another blow. So that was a really tough time. But I'm really glad that colleges are really coming up with these pre-placement trainings and personality development programs. For instance, you and I are instantly giving pre-placement training to a college right now, and they don't have to start from scratch, at least the first year students, because we've already taken them through all of these issues that you generally face, for instance, with online GDs, with online PIs. So all of these things they've already practiced so many times that now they're very, very confident. Like they don't think they'll just freeze. um, then we don't really just focus on the behavioral aspect of it. You focus on the practical work aspect of it as well. For instance, how to make really good presentations, how to place things on a presentation, like really basic on ground things like this. So we take them through this, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, they are a lot more confident in doing all of these now. So even though the pandemic has impacted it, as I said initially in my first answer as well, we just adapted to it. So it's a problem, and we know what the solution is. It is L&D, and we've implemented it, and it's working. So I guess it's basically a straight line at this point.
So I think it's more on, if you look at L&D from a different perspective or a broader lens, you can see that it's not just a part of your employee life cycle. You can even implement that right from your B school's training. So
Yeah.
definitely that is there. So what are your thoughts on the length of the training, as in 2 whole years that are there into? So you did share that PPT making and communication skills can be improved, but having an entire credit course for an entire 2 years, how do you think will that be beneficial for the students? Do they need such an elongated training?
Okay. So I guess initially when we started with this idea that we can do something in the pre-placement training, personality development like program like sector, initially we thought it would just be a pre-placement training that we'll just talk to them about GDPIs, how to basically crack an interview and get employed. But then when we like dove a little deeper into it, like also through my experiences, what we realized was that it's not just about cracking interviews, it's about dealing with this entire new world that we've been basically shoved into, right? So I think the way we look at it, it won't be pre-placement training or personality development. It's a simple life skills training. right? So how to deal with everything from rejection to managing stress when you're starting a new job, to even like things like stage fright, which is a huge issue which is not being tackled, especially with the like online classes. It's not possible for people to really tackle this issue of stage fright because you're just talking to yourself in a on a laptop basically, right? So they don't really realize how big this issue might become. So we don't just focus on the technical aspects, like I talked about the presentations, email writing, etc. We talk about the behavioral aspect. We talk about EQ improvement. We talk about general awareness, which is really lacking in B school students at this point. I feel it is through my experiences, right? So now, like when I see them at the beginning of our sessions, and now there's such a huge difference because they want to learn more. They want to know what's happening in the world. For instance, in a very recent session, we talked about the Russia and Ukraine issue, and honestly, they knew more than me. So I was really proud of that, right? So that means that they're actually genuinely interested in world affairs, in like increasing their gender awareness, and all of this does impact them as well. They realize that now. Initially they might have thought कि अरे रशिया में हो रहा है हमें क्या फर्क पड़ेगा, but they realize that they do have like that issue has direct impacts on them as well. So just dealing with just basic things like stage fright detection, all of these things we just talk about, and in addition to that we give training for PIs, GDs, CV writing. What are we give like what is the correct way of placing things on a CV? How do you write stuff? How do you reduce it to 1 or 2 pages? So all of these things they were really struggling with, but after working with them a lot, now they teach us. So I think that's where you want to be, especially as a trainer. And as far as the 2 year thing, like the 2 year the duration thing goes, that just helps us give a more well-rounded approach to it. Nothing is rushed. We have a lot of time to even improvise on the spot. Like if we feel that there's one place where they need more sessions, we can really very easily place those. But if you have just a 1 year rigorous session, then that would sort of be a little tougher to do, I feel. And just I think at the end of the day, we look at these sessions as making freshers employable. Like what all can they require to make them good employees, and then we just train them in that. I guess that's the gist of it.
I think it's a very interesting thought, making freshers employable. That is an interesting thought that we can take with us after the webinar today. Okay, so coming to the recruitment part, so you've also been part of the recruitment team. So do you feel that because of the pandemic, is there some expectation gap with respect to soft skills? So you've been on both sides as a student and as as a recruiter. So do you feel that there's a gap that needs to be addressed to make these freshers more employable? So what kind of skills or what kind of gaps you can fill through these trainings?
Okay, so with respect to soft skills, like especially corporate specific soft skills, I can actually give my own examples in these. So when it comes to flexibility, that I feel is a big issue with freshers right now, and it was for me also. I mean, initially, just I imagine being part of one project and that's it. Like that would be what I'll be working on. But you have to be flexible enough to actually work on 3 to 4 projects at once, right? It's because you're working in a company, you're working in a multifaceted organization, and especially in a company like Heads Up, where ownership is actually at the center of everything that is done. You can't really just expect to do one thing and just keep doing that for the rest of your life, because that won't help you grow, right? So you have to be very flexible in that sense, and that was a challenge initially for me because it actually caused a mini case of burnout as well. Like now then I think look back at it, that wasn't exactly burnout, that was just stress of dealing with so many things at once. But you adapt to it and you learn from it, right? So I guess I'm just trying to put my experience as a fresher in like as an answer to your question. So the second one was problem solving was really tough for me initially because I did not know how the company worked. I did not know who to approach for what sort of questions. Even though like here there I mean there's so much of like it's just open communication, you can approach anyone with any trivial problem as well. But in the first 2 3 weeks it is a little tough because you've just come into the system. You don't want to appear for the lack of a better word, stupid. You don't want to like other people to question your employment. Although the like even small things they don't really do that obviously, but it's just in your head. right? So problem solving, you have to really do it yourself. You have to, go on different, just Google stuff, research a little, and then you come to the answer yourself. So just that was a little tough initially. Now, I mean, obviously it's much much easier now. Then next was team building. That was really tough also, because uh, I mean, there are some people working in Delhi, there are some people working in Bangalore. So, just how do you divide your time between them? How do you try to be a part of that team? How do you enter a team that's been working together for 4 years? Right. So all of that is an issue initially, but you just learn to work with people. You learn to just you find your place, basically, where you stay, where you stand in the organization, and that takes time. And for some people, especially freshers, they sort of feel a sort of entitlement. I've done MBA, I've done 2 years of MBA, I've done such a great graduation, I deserve this, I deserve this sort of work. But that doesn't happen initially for anyone. You have to start from scratch. You have to start from, for instance, in recruitment, you have to start from like doing knock researches and making JDs, because if you don't know that, then you won't know how to talk to candidates and how to convince them to join a company. So it's just a learning process, it's a learning cycle that everyone goes through. And as a fresher, for me also, it was initially, I was feeling a little like dejected. Matlab, why do I have to do this? But now, like, a year later, I realize why I had to do this. So just that understanding, I feel, is a little missing with freshers these days. um Next, just collaboration and time management. I mean, collaboration, I think with team building, I've covered that. Time management is very tough, because you even though you have a set 8.5 hours that you have to work every day, sometimes it used to like the work did not fill those that time, and then I used to feel guilty for leaving early. Sometimes it spills over, and then you're feeling weird, okay, why am I working so much, but then you sort of realize that like the work that's given, it's given in such a way that it has to fill that time. So it's on me to spread it out that much, or like to shrink it to that much. So if it is spilling over, or if it is taking less time, then there's like the fault is mine. I am putting myself through that. So that realization also takes a bit of time. But as a fresher, the easiest way is to blame someone else, right? That it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault. Kare, that person did not give me work, or that person did not get back to me. But it's on me to follow up. So just that thing with freshers, that does take a little bit of time. And I
Mm.
think the biggest issue is that you're not used to independence, because you come from a very in your MBA, your professors are your gods, right? Because you have to give them assignments, you have to take marks from them. Then when you're thrown into a company, especially like heads up, where you're given so much independence that this is your end goal, you have to reach here. How you reach is your problem, it is not my problem. So just that, it just puts you in a very uncomfortable spot initially, but now, like, I realize that some people thrive on it and some people don't. So it's just a mindset thing that you just have to like overcome it. And I think now a lot of other companies are also moving to this independence and ownership based model of employment.
Mm.
So freshers will need to sort of just take initiative and just do it. I mean, there's no other thing that they can do, basically.
Yeah, so I think a lot of expectation setting needs to be done right from their college,
Yeah.
and also I think what you as you mentioned, a lot of skills that can be incorporated in the mindset of these students, so
Yeah.
that probably it's, I think, sharing from my experience also, it's the onboarding time that a fresher especially takes to get adjusted and accustomed to the new working environment, that can be shortened if you start the training right from the basic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, recently, like our founder, like Mr. Sumit Kumar, he told us this thing that no problem comes as a big thing. It always comes as a small thing, and it's the ignorance. Like, you leave it alone, you think that it'll go away. It doesn't go away. It just keeps multiplying. It just keeps becoming bigger. So if
Mm.
a problem comes as a stone, you can easily put it down to a pebble. But if you leave that stone like just lying, it will become a boulder, and then you can't deal with it. So I feel the sessions that, like for instance, the sort of sessions that we have planned, they target all of these issues from the first day or the first week of a B school student's journey. So if you start tackling this right there, then they know what to expect when they enter the corporate world, because they know a lot of real life experiences from us, from the alums, from other guest lectures, so all of that just needs to be done from the first week itself. That's it.
So the assignments that you give, that kind of things that actually connect them to the real world. So they do not have to wait for the internship to actually give
Yeah.
them a practical exposure. So that is a great initiative in itself. So we do have one question from the audience. So it is: do you think the initiative for training should come from the managers or employee themselves, or from the topmost leaders?
Okay, I think it can come from anyone. It can come from someone who's just entered the system. It can come from someone who's been in the system for like 10 odd years. There's really no age for L&D. That's something that we really tend to forget, because as employees we just assume कि अरे ये तो मैनेजर का काम है, वो हमको अगर कोई ट्रेनिंग बोलेगा हम कर लेंगे, कोई सेशन देगा हम कर लेंगे. But the point is that you have to, at the end of the day, you have to look at where you want to be, and you just have to be ambitious, and you need to know where you want to be and what you need to get there, right?
Hmm.
And then if you go to your manager, okay, this is the sort of training that I feel would be really good for me and for the company, I don't think any manager is going to say no, right? They will obviously try to do everything in their power to get you that training. Even vice versa, if you feel that a manager can benefit from certain sort of training, I don't think you should shy away from telling them, because you're ultimately helping them grow and also yourself grow, because you've taken that initiative to you have that clarity of thought that you can tell them that, this is somewhere that you can improve. And I don't think that there should be any age for L&D. I mean, there's just, it can come from anyone.
Life is basically a learning journey. So at any point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have another question: what's the best way to evaluate the impact of training?
The impact of training, I think that has to be very subjective, I feel. Because different types of training would give you different types of impacts, right? For instance, if I can answer for the pre-placement training, the life skills training that we give to college students, to MBA students. So how we evaluate the impact of that is, are they more confident? Do they feel more comfortable voicing their opinions? Do they have an opinion? That is the lowest level. The highest level would obviously be, how fast are the placements happening, how fast are the SIP placements happening, for first year students, how well are they able to perform in GDs, what is the sort of feedback that the industry leaders who come in to take these processes are giving them, where can they improve, where can we help them in that. So that is how I would like evaluate the impact of that training. I think for other sorts of training you would be in a better position to tell the impact, but like the pre-placement sort of training that we do, I think this would be how we would evaluate it.
I think it's more on the training need analysis that we can do. Even before thinking of training, you need to list down some factors, as in what kind of evaluating factors are we looking at after the training. So I think that would also really help in evaluating the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have another question: how does L&D contribute to retention strategy?
The retention strategy, I think it's a very integral aspect that you know I'll be very honest, people do miss out on it, because again that thought comes in कि अरे L&D क्या ही फर्क पड़ता है, करे नहीं करे, doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is that if an employee feels that their growth needs are being met in the company, that they are given all possible avenues to just be better, to learn more, to they have a clear like a career trajectory in the organization itself. L&D is a huge factor in that, because it depends on the sort of trainings that you give them. It depends on the sort of mentor mentee programs that you have with them, for with the high level leaders, with top managers and company leaders. So all of these things do impact the retention strategy for sure, but it's just a matter of seeing it at the right point, because these days, I mean, I think we're all aware, attrition is at its highest, especially in say IT industries or gaming industries, etc. So if they're at the highest, then why not just use the simplest tool that we have in our arsenal, which is L&D,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so we have another question. So, can we consider training to be a reward? Can we consider training as a reward, or would its impact get affected with that perception?
um Again, I think we should like we can consider it a reward. There's nothing wrong with that. The impact should not be affected with that perception, because at the end of the day, it is the employee who's benefiting, it is the company who's benefiting. So I don't see a problem with that, basically. But I mean, again, I think that would be very company specific, like how they want to view it. For instance, in our company, if there's some sort of training, I don't think it's viewed as a reward. It's just viewed as something that we know we want, and the company gives it to us. I mean, it's basically that simple.
Right. So I think there's a lot of expectation setting and communication that has to be, circulated within the employees, the importance of it or how it will benefit you. So there some linkages that have to be built to really make the employees aware that this is something for your own growth as well, not just for the company.
Yeah.
So that's that. Okay. So that's all with the questions. So are there any closing thoughts, Sanchi?
I had a lot of fun answering all of your questions. I mean, even the questions of the audience, that was great, because it really did make me think that, at least L&D is growing as a field. Because honestly, it's a passion of mine, basically. So it's just very heartening to see that people are actually aware of how much, to what extent it actually affects a company. Even things like retention strategy, those things are not really talked about, because we don't talk about L&D to for retention, to for it's very far ahead in the line. So yeah, I mean, it's just great to see that it's actually gaining momentum.
Also, I think a lot of misconception regarding the type of training. It's not a classroom training. There are different kinds of training modules and very interesting activity-based training sessions that are there. And I think again, the awareness is the problem here.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if that is solved, I think, yeah,
We will try to tackle this problem for sure.
definitely, definitely.
Yes.
Okay, okay, Tanji, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sugandha. I had a great time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye bye.